Hello, welcome to the Pop-Off PC Mag Video Game Show. We talk about games, game hardware, game news, trends, all sorts of stuff about video games. Today we're talking about virtual reality, something that's at this point been a thing in gaming for like a few years now, despite feeling quite futuristic. I think you could be almost nostalgic for some of these early VR headsets. But they're going forward, new headsets are coming out all the time, and today we're talking about one of the more exciting new headsets, the Valve Index, with our resident VR expert, Will Greenwald. Will, how are you?
Hey.
So Will, what is the Valve Index? What is this new Valve Index? What is it?
It's not super new. It came out a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we've gotten it in the lab and have finally put it through its paces. Obviously, testing in the lab has been a little bit awkward for a period of time, but we finally have set up our VR testing space again and have just gone through the Index. And it is Valve's VR headset. It's tethered. It works with computers over Steam VR. You need to connect a big cable to it. And its most interesting thing is its grip-based controllers, which we can get to as we after we go through all the basic facts of it.
Right. So I was saying earlier how VR headsets have been around for a while, including VR headsets from Valve. What was it? It was the Vive was the previous Valve headset. So
okay. HTC made it, but it was the first headset that they really worked with Valve to have it be like the first Steam VR compatible headset. And since then, HTC has gone off in their own direction. Their headsets still work with Steam VR, but it's not a Valve co-project anymore. It's just HTC's headset line.
So the Index is Valve's first, just totally Valve, beginning to end in-house. Okay.
Which is good because Valve definitely has a great history with hardware.
That's right. So then I guess that being the case, what kind of separates the Index from the Vive, like from previous Valve kind of VR experiments?
The headset itself is pretty much just kind of an upgraded Vive. It still uses these base stations you put around the room to track position. It has cameras, which the original Vive didn't, but they're pretty universal on most headsets now. The headset itself is it's a nice VR headset. It's a good picture. It has a higher refresh rate than a lot of the others, 120 hertz, but the big difference is its controllers. It has these sort of grip controllers where it can sense each of your fingers' movements. So like if you grip with any of your fingers, like if you have virtual hands, it'll move each finger individually, which it makes stuff a lot more immersive. Obviously, they showed it off in Half-Life Alyx, the first new Half-Life game in 15 years. And have they released a non-VR version yet? I think maybe.
Probably not officially, but fans can do whatever they want.
But that's the big thing to really show off the grip controllers. And yeah, you can move Alyx's fingers individually when picking up stuff in City 17 or wherever.
So how do they pull that? How do they pull that off?
That's a very good question. It could be touch sensors in the grip, or there is a hand strap that goes over the knuckles, which there might be some circuitry there. I mean, we haven't taken apart a controller to see how it works because we only have the two and we want to keep using it. There are a lot of ways they might have done it, but it's the first VR controller we've seen that really does that. The Oculus Quest has these controllers where there are two triggers. One is for the middle finger, so you can sort of pull on it and it does grip. And most of these controllers have some touch sensing for the thumbs, where if you just touch your thumb to a touchpad or a stick, it'll actually sense you're moving your thumb. It could just be an extension of that, but the fact that it does each finger it makes it feel like you're moving your hands. And the strap I mentioned actually makes it feel even more immersive than perhaps the grips, because it means you can just let go and you won't drop the controllers. It'll still stay sort of floating near your hand, so you can actually move your hand open to interact with things.
It sounds like using a glove versus using like a mitten or something, as far as
Yeah, pretty much. And there are VR gloves, but they're pretty much just for development and business stuff. And there are plenty of makers and tinkerers who can get that stuff working in VR games, but most VR games aren't built to use gloves directly. And they're also way more expensive than the controllers.
So you mentioned Half-Life Alyx. Have you gotten to play a significant amount of that game?
I played a good amount. It's a Half-Life game. It is It's immersive. It looks real cool. You can walk around and pick stuff up and throw them like you can in Half-Life 2. It it's a Half-Life game in VR. Like, it is a full experience. It's a full game you can play. So it isn't just like, play this for 15 minutes and then you're done. Yeah, you know what VR is like now. It's an actual full game, which is kind of rare enough. Like, they're more common, but this really shows off what you can do with the tethered headset and the the index controllers.
Yeah, because you'd be kind of forgotten what it's like when Valve makes a new game. Because when they do, they're pretty good at it.
Yeah, usually.
So that had kind of been a rumor for a while that when they would ever get back to Half-Life, it would be to sell some VR thing.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the case. So still no Episode 3 or Half-Life 3, or I'd love to see a Team Fortress 3, but yeah, VR. And there is like this other sort of free experience. Like, Half-Life Alyx comes with the index. So if you buy the index, you actually also get that game.
There you go.
But there's also a free sort of showing off the controller experience called Aperture Hand Labs. And it's just interacting with different wacky aperture science orbs that have these arms as like, hey, high five one, or do a complicated handshake or fist bump. And yeah, it shows it off, and it's neat. And we just need to see more games that do it.
And it's more Portal stuff, more kind of Valve franchise stuff.
Pretty much.
So even if the games don't necessarily take advantage of all of the features, can you still use this for just your run-of-the-mill VR games?
Oh yeah, it still has buttons and physical triggers and all the usual things you would need with any Steam VR game. So it works just as well as the Oculus Touch controllers or the HTC Vive controllers or Windows mixed reality controllers. Like, they all basically have the same functions. It's just the index adds these fingers.
Got it. So the last time we had you want to talk about VR, I think we were talking about the Oculus. I get all the subtitles mixed up. What is the good Oculus headset now?
The Oculus Quest 2, which is also pretty much the only Oculus headset for consumers. They've sort of phased out / are phasing out the Rift. So the idea is you just get the Quest and you use it standalone, or you can get the accessory cable and connect it to your computer.
Okay. So then how do you think these devices compare then?
Well, the big thing that makes the Index stand out is the controllers, which definitely step up from the Oculus controllers. But the other big difference is just connecting it to your computer and having a really fast, responsive picture, and just being able to have way better graphics than you can with the standalone Quest. And yes, you can connect the Quest to your computer, so you can take advantage of a gaming PC that can put out way better graphics than the mobile chipset the Quest has. But the Index is built entirely around that, so it has higher refresh rate, so that's a benefit too. It just you can get better graphics, but the trade-off is, like with all tethered headsets, you use this big cable, which you need to worry about not tripping over when you're turning around, and I had to be very careful with that.
Now, what about the price?
It's pricey. Just getting the controllers, which if you have an HTC Vive or Vive Pro, or I think Cosmos Elite, anything with the base stations, you can actually just upgrade the controllers for $280, which is expensive, but it's a standalone upgrade.
But that's as you were saying, that's kind of a big part of what makes it so innovative is the controllers.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty much the main thing. The whole package with the base stations, the headset, and the controllers is $1,000, which is pretty expensive for a VR headset.
And that's on top of needing to have a computer that can run it.
You need a computer that runs it, and VR requirements have gotten a lot less daunting now that we've gone into a new generation of graphics cards. So, like, if you have, I think, a 1070, you should be fine. But if you can get one that's better, if you can find one that's better, then you're going to have a better experience. There's another cool feature in the Index, which is it's a minor thing, but with the cameras, it uses the base stations for motion tracking. So it is very precise with that, but it uses the cameras to sort of 3D scan the area around you. So instead of just putting up a holographic wall around your play space, which all these things do, it can actually show you like 3D, like really simple glowing 3D models of like a table next to you, so you know not to trip over it, which is really cool.
Cool. And that's pretty accurate, that stuff?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. And the perspective of it, and like you can see your hands moving, it actually does it so it's like you're pretty much looking at it. In other headsets where you have a pass-through camera, it doesn't do that. So it is really disorienting because you're looking at like a totally different field of view than your eyes. So you don't know how to interact with things.
That almost sounds kind of like I feel like some developer could maybe use that for almost some kind of AR type stuff, like to incorporate the actual objects in your room.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the potential's there.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so while we have you here talking about VR, I just want to talk about where you've tested a fair amount of headsets over the years.
Yep.
Where do you think that VR is at these days?
Uh, I think VR is appealing. There's definitely an audience for it. I'm not sure how big that audience is. Like, it is accessible enough that you can get into it and enjoy it. I mean, the Oculus Quest 2 is, Quest 2 is just standalone and it's only $300. So if you want to just try out VR, that's pretty much your best bet. And serious PC gamers can get the Valve Index. That's definitely the choice at this point. So there definitely are enough inroads and there's enough availability, and there are plenty of VR games that you can actually just play and enjoy. So we're definitely there. The question is like how much of the overall gaming market is really interested in VR or wants to deal with it. And that's sort of the big mystery, because at heart, VR is still something where you need to put something kind of uncomfortable on your head. And at least for me, I get like a headache after an hour or two using it. So
even still, even as someone who has tested many of these for over the course of years now, like you still,
I'm actually more prone to it than most people.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it makes testing fun.
Well, we thank you for your service. Yeah, but that was something that kind of I was thinking about a lot last year, because Half-Life Alyx came out last year, and I was just thinking, like, especially with all the pandemic stuff, of like people really got to put some things in priority here about what they need to be spending their money on. And I was just thinking, like, even like I thought like next gen consoles fell into this issue as well. Of like people have to really look at these devices, like, what do I really need this? Like, what is this really offering me? And I feel like VR, especially when you think of how niche it is and the price, and again, like potential discomfort of like, I feel like that could have really suffered from people being like, do I need this or not?
It could have, but also just the appeal of being able to sort of visually go somewhere else, I think was very appealing through all of 2020.
That's also very true. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is, I think it's a case where, especially for the Index, where you need a pretty good gaming PC to run it, it's sort of the case where if you already have what you need for it, you're probably closer to the market of, it being a feasible purchase. Like if you're willing to spend that much on a PC that can run it, you'd be willing to at least consider investing that much in the Index. And $300 is the price of a Switch. It is much less than the new consoles. So the Quest 2 is not like insurmountable if you're looking to just try out the experience. And I think that has definitely helped with that consideration. But also there's a lot of people aren't spending the money on the new consoles or on new graphics cards because they can't find them. So maybe they have the budget for the VR with that in mind.
So what about you though? If it weren't your job to use these things, which one do you think that you would personally gravitate the most towards at this point?
I'd still go with the Quest 2. Don't get me wrong, the Index controllers are revolutionary. It's really cool, really immersive. But the price of the Quest 2, and the most important thing, the fact that it's standalone, you don't need any cables, you just can move freely. And that is a huge benefit to me, because it's super easy to just, no matter how long or how flat the cables lay, it's still easy to get caught up in them because you have this long wire running from the back of your head to the computer, and that's awkward. And I think that really, you can get a better visual experience, but the sense of freedom is just diminished by needing to remember where the cable is at all times in case you get turned around. And yeah, I think it's just more accessible for the standalone side, but then you run into a wall of how much processing power you can get with it.
It's true, and it doesn't have crowbars and the G-Man in it.
Yep.
Okay, but then anything else about the Valve Index you think people should know?
Yeah, while the Index controller is more immersive, you can look at your hands and move each individual finger. When playing a game, or even real life, how often do you use your pinky or ring finger individually to do something?
I'm a piano maestro over here, so I'm using all my fingers all the time.
I mean, even just for typing on a keyboard. And also the grip control isn't that precise where you could comfortably like virtually type in the air and have like each finger be like positioned to cover a keyboard. No, it's very much just, are you gripping or are you not gripping? So it is not a one-to-one perfect movement reproduction. So there is a limit to how immersive it is, and that also means there's a limit to how useful it is in a game, because basically you need to grip, you need to be able to use your trigger finger, you can use your thumb to do stuff. That's kind of all you need in most of these games. Like, there is no reason to use these individually.
That's an interesting point. So it's almost like this fidelity is, it's not even, you don't even need it all most of the time.
Pretty much, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. But it sounds cool that's at least there. And again, like games like you're saying, games like Half-Life Alyx do get the most out of it.
Yeah, although like a lot of that's still visual, and honestly, I think you could still get virtually the same experience just with like a general grip instead of the fingers.
Okay. All right. Well then, all right. So that's the Valve Index. If people can attempt to get it now, if they're lucky and they have the money.
I think it's more readily available than the PS5 or an RTX 380.
Okay. So yeah, that sounds appealing to you. If you are that hungry for anything Half-Life at all, this is what you need. Your review, if it's not up now already, it will be by the time people are watching this video on PCMag.com. Will Greenwald, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk to you next time.